Good evening, everyone. Today is July 8th, 2024. This is the regular meeting of USD 453. Because of the crowd, we turned the air conditioning a little lower, so let's show you're all comfortable. Then we'll have a call to order. Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Overby?
Here.
Mrs. Wells?
Here.
Mrs. Murphy?
Here.
Price?
Here.
I'm here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that everybody please mute your phones or turn them off or whatever you want to do so they don't ring. And I'll try my best to do the same. Yep. Scheduled patron input, 0. Okay, moving right along. District mission statement.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. This is just my monthly reminder for everybody to speak clearly into the microphone, as Mr. Sifford is always reminding me right before the meeting starts. So on to the mission statement. The mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Thank you. 1.5, adoption of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the amendment of removing item 9 for a future meeting. What is item
9? With the auto refresh.
9? Yes. Administration wants it viewed another month, not this month.
And it would be our intent to bring that to the August board meeting right now.
Do I have a second?
Second, as amended.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Price to amend the agenda for item 9, otherwise adopted. Okay, all in favor?
I had one that I wanted to get clarification on here. I'm just seeing if I could see it real quick. If you can remind me which one was the one addressing where it was removing harassment, sexual harassment, and changing the verbiage to discrimination.
So under policies.
You're talking about the truancy policy?
So this would just be under our policy review, I believe, correct?
Yeah, was that on this
This
consent
is
agenda?
about the agenda.
it's not on
Okay,
consent
just
agenda,
double,
it's
just
regular.
making sure.
It's regular.
Thank you.
All, do we
Second,
move?
third, move.
It's a vote.
We already voted.
I'm saying,
We haven't voted yet.
you haven't voted yet.
We didn't vote.
Okay, let's try it again. I thought we voted. What did we vote on now? With a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Price. I thought I did this one before. All in favor? Yeah. All in favor? Looks like 7-0 with the amendment. Okay, next up. Item 2, consideration of 2024-25 commercial property, general liability, school leaders, E&O insurance renewal by Mr. Riley.
All right. So I think both Beth as well as Mr. Riley are going to be presenting here. So Mike, we'd invite you to the podium. But it is that time of year for the annual renewal. And there is obviously a proposal in front of you, and I want you to have the chance to discuss that directly with Mike, as well as any questions and or comments that you have. So Mr. Riley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Members of the board, thank you for your time tonight. As stated, we are here to discuss the renewal of the property casualty insurance program, which is primarily written with Travelers Insurance. If I could, I believe you were sent the entire proposal. I'd like to just point your attention to the big issue at hand, which is page 19, the premium summary page. As you look across from year to year, I want to direct your attention really to the property line, which is the significant part of the increase. In fact, it's almost all of the increase. So if I could just start in the middle of that page where it says all lines except property. I just wanted to focus on this real briefly. All lines except the property coverage is $138,000 in premium for the current year that is expiring and it's going to $140,000 for the upcoming year, which is a $2,004 increase or 1.45%. I just wanted to draw your attention to that because I think that really exemplifies travelers and what they are and how they have been to the school district over the course of probably 25 years that they have insured Leavenworth School District. Having said that, we are at a catastrophic point in time when it comes to property coverage, not just for Leavenworth School District, but across the board, not only in Kansas and Missouri and the Midwest, but quite honestly, across the board in the entire insurance industry right now. So let me just kind of share some information about that. Where are we today? I believe we are in a perfect storm. And I don't mean to use that as a pun, but quite honestly, huge catastrophic losses across the entire country are causing large losses on the insurance companies. Couple that with reinsurance tightening and reinsurance companies responding with increased premiums. And let me give you an example of that. So when Travelers proposes to handle your property insurance, there's roughly $230 million of value that they are insuring. They do not take on that entire risk. So if the F4 tornado comes through Leavenworth, knock on wood that it doesn't, Travelers does not want to assume all that risk, and no insurance company would. So they go out and buy reinsurance on top of offering you insurance. They buy insurance themselves, and that market is seeing a very drastic increase in tightening in rates. We're still obviously seeing a lot of inflation when it comes to property replacement, cost of materials and labor, and certainly a skilled labor shortage, which is creating longer rebuild times in the event that there are covered claims. You know, the insurance business is different than buying a truck or paper, so to speak. You know, it's not a tangible item. With insurance, you're buying a promise. As an insurance buyer, you are basically saying for a set amount of money, you're giving to an insurance company, and they're making a promise that if bad things really happen, they're going to help you pay for it. And if you're an insurance company, you're making a bet. And that's really what it is. It's an educated bet, a bet backed by lots of data and lots of history, but it's a bet nonetheless that if I charge a certain amount of money to a particular client, I'm going to have enough money to pay their claims and make a profit, which is what all insurance companies desire to do. And in the past 3 to 4 years, the insurance companies have been taking a loss. They have been getting beat in their bets in a big way. And I believe I sent Beth a lot of articles. Hopefully you had a chance to just peruse those, certainly some very light nighttime reading, but it speaks to the industry at large. You know, 2023 was the worst year in the insurance business, $23.5 billion in losses, catastrophic claims of fires and hurricanes and wind and hail, not only in the Midwest, but across our entire country, are causing that. So what typically happens in the insurance world is the premium pendulum swings too far both ways, right? And for the first 15 to 18 years of my existence with Leavenworth School District, we really saw the premium pendulum swing very far to the right, to the cheap, although we probably didn't think it was. We were there for a very long period of time. And I say that because we were in an 8 to 9 cent rate when it came to your property insurance, which is very, very low. What we're seeing right now, because of all the claims that are happening, because of all the issues I talked about, it's my belief we are seeing that pendulum swing too far the other direction, or at least really far the other direction, to a point where hopefully I feel like we're either at the top of this thing or trending to the top of this. As we look out, I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I hope that we're almost at that point, and it feels like we are. There are effectively 2 insurance companies that write insurance for school districts in the state of Kansas. EMC is one of those. EMC traditionally works with most school districts west of Topeka. They like small school districts. And they do handle a few on the east property of east side of the state as well. Travelers is the other carrier, and Travelers has some small districts that they represent. Leavenworth continues to be the only large school district remaining on the Travelers book of business. You have been almost a 25-year client with Travelers Insurance. And the reason that they are keeping you as a client is because of your great track record, your losses, and quite frankly, we have a tremendous relationship with them as well. EMC came out early this year and wanted to move everyone across their entire book of business to a 25-cent property rate. So imagine where we've been, 8 or 9 cents. This current year, Leavenworth School District is at a 13-cent property rate. EMC made this blanket statement that we are moving everyone to a 25-cent rate, and the world went crazy, right? All of EMC clients. But they are making that transition happen. In some cases, they're doing it year one. In some cases, they're stepping it out over 2 or 3 years. Travelers, we are at a current 13-cent rate. They wanted to move you to a 19-cent rate, and we negotiated that down to a 17-cent rate. So while it is still a very painful renewal, and I agree that it is, it's not a catastrophic renewal. A catastrophic renewal would be a district that cannot find property insurance, and that is happening in today's world. So we're not quite there yet. As we looked out, and obviously as your broker, I wanted to take as many steps as possible to say, okay, we got, Travelers is certainly the golden standard, and they're offering renewal. Although it's difficult, it's still a somewhat of a reasonable renewal when I look across the state. But we went out to several property markets other than with those other lines of coverage. So just property alone. And I gave you some optional quotes. We really went to the 5 other really premier property markets, and they had to be standalone markets, because they don't write school districts, E&O and general liability and auto and things like that. So we received what is on page 19 there as a result. Chubb Insurance declined to quote due to pricing and size. Cincinnati did the same thing due to pricing. They felt that your pricing was still too cheap for them. CNA offered a quote at almost $120,000 more than Travelers. Liberty Mutual was almost $300,000 more. And we went to AIG Insurance because AIG Insurance is an option for large insurance buyers. When you reach over $1 billion of property values and your premium continues to grow in one particular line of coverage, you start looking at things like partial self-insurance or full self-insurance. In that line of business, you start looking at things like $1 million comprehensive deductibles. Currently, we're not there, but I wanted to at least start having those conversations to give you an idea what an AIG, who is a large writer of partially self-funded or fully self-funded insurance, would look like. Again, their premium was in the $700,000 range with a $1 million self-insured retention across all claims. So where are we going? I do think we are at that top of the pendulum. I do feel like, hopefully considering the fact that we have had very good experience here, if we continue to do that, my hope is that we are starting to see the end of this really drastic swings of premium and it starts leveling out. I cannot and will not guarantee you that it goes back. I don't think it will drastically go back, but I would like to see it soften to where we're just not seeing these large increases. So with that, I would answer any questions. I do think the property piece is quite honestly, obviously the major piece of the puzzle here. Beth and her team do a great job of keeping us updated on all the other lines of coverage, whether it's auto or anything else. And I feel like you have a really well-rounded insurance program, but I certainly understand that the pain right now, and everyone is feeling it, and you're all going to feel it when it comes to your personal homeowner's policy or your renter's policy. You are going to see your premium go up. You're going to see wind and hail deductibles. And it's just a function of where we are all in today's world. So with that, I know it's a lot. I'll answer any questions that you have. And certainly Beth might want to fill in a few things.
Is there any depreciation on these buildings built in for the
No,
factor?
so a great question. Actually, your property insurance is all at replacement cost. right? And the replacement values, as I mentioned earlier, have actually gone up. So last year we were roughly at $213 million in total values, and this year we're closer to $230 million in total values. So if you take that school, that 15 or 75,000 square foot elementary school, right? It used to be 13 million to build. Now it's 17 to 19 million to build. If that's even remotely close in today's world. The way we have your program structured is what's called on a blanket basis. I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but we have that $238 million or $230 million, excuse me, at every single location you have. So if one elementary school burns, we have effectively $238 million at that location to rebuild that facility. Where we come into play with the full limit is if the F4 comes through Leavenworth and every building is destroyed, then it's still the $230 million.
So out of curiosity, like in homeowners, you can get the additional endorsement that does the guaranteed replacement. So if you have that building at 230 million, but because of the shortage of skilled workers or the increase of wood, nails, everything else, and that now property is going to actually cost you to rebuild it as it was.
Right.
In that market at that point would say 290 million.
Right.
Are we covered for that, or
No.
are we just covered flat for 230?
That's correct.
Okay.
So in the event of a single location loss or 2 or 3 locations get hit by a particular tornado, but it's not every building in the district,
Mhm.
we would have plenty of coverage to handle that increased cost of construction.
You could stream it over that
Absolutely.
way.
So we would
But
have that
if it were a
200.
wipeout,
If it's a complete wipeout, every building in the district is hit and completely destroyed.
you're limited.
It's 230.
Okay.
We'd have to read it.
Thank you.
What if we discontinued like using Nettie Hartnett and just sitting there empty? Doesn't matter.
Absolutely. We can take any building off that you don't want to insure. We do not have to insure a building.
Oh, okay.
You bet.
I appreciate the information that you gave to us weeks prior, so we were able to have that and review it. So thank you for that.
You bet.
Mike, you made a comment earlier about catastrophic. What would be the trigger for us to hit catastrophic what's that amount? Just curious, or do you have one?
In terms of, you mean
Like can't be reinsured or?
can't be insured? We're in a great position of, right now, over the past 5 years, Travelers has paid roughly $375,000 in claims. You're averaging right around $75,000 a year in claims, which is phenomenal for a district your size. So with that kind of experience, we don't have a frequency problem. So even if we had a severity event where we had a fire or, a particular building that was severely damaged, I don't believe that we would see really any drastic repercussions from Travelers. We would see drastic repercussions from Travelers if there was a large wind, hail, or tornadic event that wiped us out.
Takes everything.
Yep.
Okay.
More or less like what happened in California and other places with big earthquakes in the 90s.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions?
Are we still self-insuring part of this? Okay. Does this alleviate some of that self-insurance? Okay. Thank you.
There's no other questions. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I mean, sort of.
Mr. Carney, you do
Yes.
need a motion to accept or approve the,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the continuation of the insurance with Travelers. Is it for the amount of the 460.61 in addition
No.
to the 140 or
The 600, 164.
600.
all of it combined?
Yeah.
600, 164.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Murphy to accept the policy presented by the Riley Company. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Thank you. Now I can thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And let's move on to the consent agenda. 3-1 check register, 3-2 minutes, 3-3 consideration of 2024-25 meal prices, and the KSB policy update, JBE truancy.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Defer to Ms. Overby.
Who seconded it?
Ms. Overby.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Overby. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Number 5, strategic plan highlight.
Ryan, would you please go to the website? So it maybe shouldn't have said highlight as much as it should have said maybe reflection. You are now basically 1 year into this. And so I thought tonight would be ripe for some conversation on what would you like to see moving forward, as well as what have we done in the last 12 months. Does that make sense? So one thing that we've done is on the board agenda, you should see a strategic plan focus area on nearly every single agenda item. Those making sense?
Yes.
Hopefully linking there as you're making those important decisions. Okay. Number 2 is we identified a monthly cadence, and I don't have that spreadsheet handy, but you can probably recall. They have ranged anywhere from recruitment and retention related to student achievement data to, I think last month was special education, if I'm not mistaken. The third thing is we created this publicly available dashboard, which is linked to our webpage. And in my opinion is a great one-stop shop that is very user-friendly. And so if you would just hop into one of them and let's look at one of the embedded Google Sheets, if you would please. And the idea was to identify either an annual, semi-annual, or perhaps even quarterly cadence for that. So it looks like we're looking at spring to spring Fast Bridge. Those are then updated by the teaching and learning department. And those are embedded as soon as that data becomes available. So my question for you is, what would you like to see added or differently as we go into year 2? And we continue to make this a regular part of our cadence and focus.
I still would like to see on every graph or data point that we have offered when the date that was collected and put on there.
Okay, so dates of publications.
Yes.
Okay.
Since this has already been in effect for a year, I think all of our current data would be essentially our baseline. So I think anything from there would be where we change from that baseline,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So let's just use this one up here as an example. We don't have the date it was published. So you'd like to see that was, I'm just using this as an example, February 2024, right? And then in February 2025, you'd like to see this one side by side or
Yes.
something?
To show where we
So
make
we can
progress.
see a line graph or a progress of
Trend, whatever it is.
Okay. Very good.
And that kind of plays back to a metrics.
What else?
Any other comments? Nope. Doesn't seem to be.
All
I
right.
love the touching on academics for sure, especially. I think all of it's been great, but I'd love to see as much of that as possible. That's what I get asked about the most.
Sure.
How are the kids doing? How are our reading scores, math scores?
Absolutely. Okay. So we decided on 1 a month just for the purpose of focusing or highlighting on that. But just note there's months in which there may be 12 that were updated, for example. So if there's something different you want to see highlighted, by all means, please let me know. Okay. I will get those to the team. Thank you.
That it? Moving on to number 6, reorganization of the Board of Education, election of officers. The way we're going to do this is there'll be open nominations for the board president, and we'll vote yes or no for the candidate, and then move on to the vice president.
I'd like to nominate you as president again, Mr. Carney.
I'd like to nominate Judy Price.
I'd like to nominate Lisa Murphy.
Do we second? Yeah.
Someone's got to be seconded. So Mr. Carney,
Well, it's supposed to be nominations, it wasn't supposed to be a second.
nominations take a second.
Right.
So second your nomination.
Okay, so you made the nomination for me, so yes or no for Michael Carney?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the vice president. Same thing, nominations for the vice president.
Wait,
No.
That's, yeah, you have, you have to, if there's multiple nominations, you can have a
Each one.
slate of nominations and everyone to go vote for them. It was unclear, I will be honest with you, from there of nominating one single person, of whether that was up for a nomination or for the actual position. Does that make sense?
So-
Do we
so what is the
nominate, second
direction?
it, And then vote, or?
Say that again, Daniel, I'm
So
sorry.
then what is the direction?
The direction is if it sounded like the nomination was you just being nominated. That's the way that I interpreted the motion.
Okay.
So is it, hey, we're voting for Mr. Carney as being, that's the president, or are you going to do a vote nomination for 3 individuals and vote for each 3? How do you want to do it? But that was unclear, to be very honest.
So each person that got nominated, we make
We
the,
should
Yes,
vote for
no
each
vote.
one, but
So we don't
Correct.
need a second for anybody.
We need a second. I do think you need a second.
you should, it's a motion.
Okay.
It's a motion and it's a second, or you can do it as a slate
So you can-
and say,
right.
there's 3 of us who's voting for, here are the nominees. Nominees, Mike Carney, who wants him to be a nominee. First, second. Okay. Is there any other nominees? First, second nominee. And then you can vote for all of them from there.
So I did second for Carney. So
Yes.
his is a full nomination with a second.
So he's a full nomination, correct?
Okay.
But that nomination doesn't necessarily
No.
mean that he's, yes,
But the others have to be addressed.
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
So basically just,
Go to
that's the first
second.
vote. And then whoever was second, you asked for votes for there.
Well,
And then
Correct.
Well, they would need
And not a second, too.
Or we could sit here and I could sit here and say, because we have 3 candidates before us, that I make a motion that we approve the slate of 3 candidates requiring a second, and then we go through an individual vote of how many for Carney, how many for Price, how many for.
You can do it that way too. I mean, but like I said, Mike already has his first and second for a nominee. Now I can't remember who else was it?
Judy was the
Mrs.
next,
Price
and
and
then
Mrs.
Nominated Mrs. Price.
Okay, so she's already put the nomination out there. That's out there. There needs to be a second if there is a second, and then that would be the second candidate. And then for the third person, et cetera.
okay. So we're voting on Mrs. Price now?
They need a second.
Is there a second for
She's
Mrs.
got a
Price?
nomination. She
Right.
needs a
And if
second.
there's- And if there's not a second, the motion dies.
Could I ask for clarification? Who voted for Carney? I was.
I did.
She nominated, she seconded.
And I think we
already
would,
have 4 for
I
Carney.
think we're saying that vote does not
Correct.
count, correct?
It does.
That was for second.
Are you saying that vote was under correct procedure? And this is where it was confusing on here. You had three unofficial candidates.
Right.
Because nobody was, you had 3 nominees. We started out with 1 individual. So the way I'm interpreting it, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm out of here, kick me out. But you have 3 nominees. You went with Carney first. Was that, it seemed to me as a vote as him being a nominee for president, not necessarily the vote of saying he is president, but being voted as a nominee.
Okay.
If everyone if
Well,
the
he's
board,
officially a nominee right now, right? Because he was nominated and seconded. So he
Correct.
is a
But what I'm
nominee.
saying is I want to make sure, because Mr. Carney was moving on to
Okay.
vice,
Oh, well, we're not
that
ready
it
to do
sounded
yet.
like that it was the board decision that, oh, he's now the president, which if that's the board decision of 4-3, that's fine. But I want to be clear, because there was other individuals nominated, that everybody gets their due time.
Okay, so we'll
That
go to
makes
the
sense.
second nominee.
So it would be, is there a second for Mrs. Price?
Okay, so not, and then there was a third person. I can't remember already.
So we vote on that
Mrs.
now?
Murphy.
So basically that motion dies.
Yep. So that one dies.
And Ms. Reed nominated Elisa Murphy, and I would like to second that.
Great. Sorry. So then that has to be a vote to have her as a nominee. And then
It's
it'll
a
be,
yes or no vote.
Yes.
No.
correct?
Voting?
Correct.
So
To be a
now-
nominee.
So now we have two nominees.
Nominees, and then you
Now we
can vote
on,
for one or the other. Correct.
So all in
Starts
favor?
over.
So all in favor for Carney for president? Yes.
Complicated.
Okay, all in favor of me, yes. Okay, 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, yes.
Okay.
Okay, next one was Mrs.
Ms. Murphy?
Murphy.
Yeah, come back to me.
1, 2, 3, and who was the third one?
That there was no third one because
Oh,
the
I
second
thought it was the third
nomination
one.
didn't pass.
Now can we move on to vice?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm now taking nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Judy Price for vice president.
Second? Or do we move forward?
Okay,
I'd like to-
All motions have to have a second before you can move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you second it?
Yeah.
And then moving on to the next, or we vote?
There's no other nominees, then you would just vote on that nominee.
Okay,
I'd like to nominate Vanessa Reed.
I'll second it.
so we're voting on the second for you.
I
So,
would like to nominate Elisa Murphy.
Can I second that? No.
so we're voting on Mrs. Price right now, correct? Or we already did that, didn't we? Didn't get-
3 candidates all received a second.
okay.
So now it's what?
I think the candidate order is important here. Is that accurate?
It just goes from, first
Okay,
nomination.
so the
down.
first one was Judy Price.
Okay.
Vote.
The second one was Vanessa Reed.
Okay,
And the third one was Elisa Murphy.
okay. Moving on.
Let us switch seats.
Reorganization of the Board of Education appointments and designations. This is going to be one motion, right?
So my recommendation, unless you want to pull something out specifically, would be one motion, as you will find on 20. I'm happy to read those. I'm happy to allow individual pullouts. But just for purposes of efficiency, 720 is set so that you can approve all of those appointments and all those designations in one motion.
And just for purpose of years past, the only change to any of these appointments is the removal of Brenda Shoemaker and the addition of Emily Clark in the exact same positions. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of any other changes. I'm looking for Beth for confirmation. So yes.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, I move the board approve all appointments, designations as presented for the transition and reorganization of the board for the 2024-2025 business year.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Price, second by Mrs. Murphy to approve items 7-1 through 720. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Item 8, reorganization of the Board of Education procedurals.
So in a similar manner, 811 is set up if you want to have one motion to take care of all those. I believe you're going to see on the back the garage sale looking situation with all those resolutions lined up there. Mrs. Clark took care of all of those for you. So those should be 24, 25, 01 through 13.
Before we do that, I have two questions. On 8-4, the approval of petty cash funds, how does that work? Who is authorized to spend, I know it's for emergency,
Sure.
but who would be authorized to spend that $1,500?
So the petty cash account is at the high school, and it's under the discretion of Mr. Vanek and or a Mrs. Cole or another assistant principal if a need for an emergency check is to be issued.
And it's just at the high school?
The petty cash fund is only, that high school is the only one with a petty cash fund. The board office does also have a petty cash fund. There are some minor situations. The thing that comes to mind a lot is a certified letter over at the post office. We need to be able to take check over to pay for the certified letter.
Okay. And then on 8.6, the approval to maintain activity funds. And I saw each building has an activity fund. And does that come out in the budget, like the number, or, because I'm assuming it's not the same for the elementary schools as the high school. Is that
activity,
like in the budget?
the activity funds is all student money. It is not part of the budget because it's all student money. There is a activity fund page that is in the budget, but it's for reporting purposes only. It's not, the activity fund themselves is not subject to budget.
Okay.
So think when a group has a fundraiser,
Mhm.
those dollars are raised by kids and they're to be used for those kids in that program. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay.
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 Any other questions or discussion? Okay. I move we adopt resolutions 24/25-001 through 24/25-013 and all other organizational procedures as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Price to approve the resolutions as presented, seconded by Mrs. Wells. All in favor?
Ms.
Murphy.
Murphy.
Mrs. Murphy? Oh, I didn't hear. Okay.
That's right.
6-1, 5. Are you voting?
I'm sorry, yeah.
7-0. Okay.
Item 9's been deferred.
Okay, and you took off 9-1 on issue, right?
Right, it's deferred for August. So item 10.
Consideration of classroom audio refresh,
Mr. Sifford,
gone.
come on down, sir.
Oh, just for discussion.
Well, he's making his way again. 9 is
Not for action.
9 was just a procedural
Oh, yeah.
issue, and so our intent is to bring that back to the August agenda.
Good evening. We're here seeking approval to purchase 325 Acer Chromebooks for our teaching staff. The current laptops I have now are going on 5 years old and are starting to show their use. Batteries are dying, just general technology. So the new device will last a lot longer with the battery life. It'll be more focused in the Google ecosystem, so everything will save to the cloud. We're recommending accepting the low bid in the amount of $113,808.50.
That's going to buy how many?
325.
What's our general refresh cycle?
It's
Is it
about
5?
5 years.
Okay.
So we are doing the teacher Chromebook at 10.1 before we do the classroom refresh at 9.1.
9.1 is deferred to August. That was part of the
Thank
amendment.
you.
Any questions?
I motion we approve consideration of teacher Chromebook refresh in the amount of $113,808.50 from Staples.
Second.
Mrs. Well,
Okay, we got a motion by Mrs. Reed to approve the Chromebook purchase, seconded by Mrs. Wells. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah, we're on, let's see, number 11. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
All right, number 11. Thank you, Mr. Carney. That continues our ongoing conversation regarding, it says capital projects because it does encompass much more, but obviously, you know the genesis of this, the JROTC potential project at LHS. You had quite the robust conversation in June regarding kind of next steps, and we felt it was prudent to start with probably one before any of those others, which was regarding how exactly do we go about paying for this, right? I think that's a question that, as I've conversed with several of you, is on your mind and likely on the minds of patrons and otherwise. So Mrs. Maddox has prepared this presentation in light of that conversation.
Good evening. Our strategic plan focus for this item is finance and operations. Again, to maintain safe and secure and welcoming facilities supporting positive student outcomes through fiscally sound decision-making and efficient operations. As you just heard from Mr. Riley on the Wind and Hail property insurance deductible, it is now going to be 5% of the value of our properties. So simple math of 230 million times 5% is 11.5 million. That could potentially be our deductible if all the buildings were a total loss in a wind and hail event. So taking that into consideration, then we look at what our capital outlay budget balance is. And our cash reserve is at 10.6 million. If we self-insure for the wind and hail coverage, it would be 5 million. And we have some emergency funds for boilers and vehicles and other unexpected items at $2.1 million, would leave cash reserve of 3.5 million to roll into a capital project or projects. So some of the capital budget expenditures that we look at, some of the categories when we look at items for the capital outlay plan is technology, security system, roofing, vehicle replacement, LHS auditorium, Pioneer Stadium and the sports complex, as well as parking and land acquisition for expansion improvements, as well as those other items I didn't read there. But these are the categories that we generally look at. From the June board meeting, we had some options for LHS building addition, and those were from anywhere from 4.7 million to 12.1 million. And if we have $3.5 million in cash, how do we finance the construction of a building addition? We only have a few options. So we can spend down our capital outlay budget cash reserve, which would be defer maintenance, defer technology, defer improvements, be a lot of deferment. We have a lease purchase that we could do that's only up to 10 years. So you can only finance it for 10 years and then you have to pay it all back. Or we have to go to a general obligation bond issue, which we've done that before. And those are usually 20 years finances. So that's going, doing the bond campaign process, putting a bond election out there and going through that process. That will result in a mill increase for bond and interest fund with a bond issue. And our state aid for a bond issues now after July 1 of 2022, due to the law change by the legislature, our state aid percentage is 0. So everything would be financed through the mill levy.
Beth, could you explain how the lease purchase program would work for us? The process, because I have not done it.
I did not get into the great detail about that. Vaguely what I understand, it'd be probably with Piper Sandler financing a lease agreement. It's a 10-year payment plan. Current interest rate's 8%. So then
Is there a limit on how much can be done through the lease purchase?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I've done it before in another district, so I'll just talk a little bit about that. Usually a local bank or banks want to compete on this. It's who will be interested in collateralizing that type of a debt. It's usually going to come in at a commercial interest rate, and as Beth alluded to, a 10-year, very much fixed payment. But the issue is the banks that are interested in that type of a note. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is not your traditional commercial type of debt.
Okay. Thank you.
But shouldn't we try to determine what we're going to get for, let's say, $9 million or $8 million? Maybe some construction company or somebody that can give us a better picture of what it is going to cost. I mean, I know the 14 million is probably out of the question that's on there, but somewhere between the 5 and the 14 million, what we are actually going to get for those dollars.
Is that what we saw
Those are the
last
four
month?
options.
Yeah.
That's what we saw last month.
Yeah, those 4
And
different
they're just
options.
estimates, so you
Right.
don't.
Yeah, well, I'd rather get something a little more concrete than just an estimate if we can.
Would it be fair to say the interest then on that would be? Can you just take it plainly, or is that going to be a lot different?
I'm
On which
sorry.
one?
So if
Ms. Reed?
we do the 8%
Oh,
for 10 years,
the lease purchase?
I think that the board should understand the amount of interest that we would pay when we're in that discussion.
So $5 million, 8% interest over 10 years is $2.4 million.
So 7.4.
So it comes out to 7 something total. So the total cost would be 7 million.
7.5 million.
I don't know about you guys, but I like to think about the interest onto the original and kind of think about that as the whole.
I
Yeah.
know you've done some amazing things with the interest rates and paying down, like our bond issue. Could you remind us what our interest rate was that's been paid off on those?
I just looked at it, so I apologize.
I know it takes a minute for the
I
files to
think-
pop up.
I think the highest interest rate we have on our current bond issues, outstanding bond issues, is 3.5%.
3.5%. And which is the one that is closest to being paid off?
It is we have our biggest payment coming in 2029, which would be for the part of the 2018 bond issue, but there's still some other outstanding that we refinanced for later.
Right, at a lower interest rate, which saved us an incredible amount of money. 'Cause I remember some of it being close to $1 million, if not more. Okay, thank you. Because there's a big difference between 3.5 and 8%.
Correct.
So one important point to drive home here is if you issue the GO debt, obviously you would use the bond and interest mill levy for that. You're familiar with that. If you issue, say, the 10-year lease purchase, you have to find that revenue stream and lock it in, so to speak, for 10 years. So we're likely looking at capital outlay, I'm going to guess, right?
Right.
And it's likely going to, in effect, lock up, so to speak, probably in the neighborhood of 25 to 30% of that annualized budget, because you've got to be able to show that ongoing debt purchase or debt commitment. Sorry.
Except for bond issues around with the school district, most of all my experience has been in banking and home loans and things like that. Is there the opportunities to buy the interest rates down?
I'm not familiar with that.
Well, like when buying a home,
Right,
it could be
right.
5%, but I could lay down $2,000 and buy it down to
Right.
4.5%.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Also, I know we've had and have some very creative grant writers. Have we explored at all within the district of seeing if there are any grants through the Department of Army or other major players through JROTC and events like that of getting grants to help offset some of the costs of this financing of this building?
Can't speak historically, so I'll look to the people here, but I can speak to recently. We have not entertained
Not
anything.
recently.
So
Most of the grants that I've seen are usually for education programming, not construction of a facility.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's a tie in there somewhere
Right.
because it's leaking, because there is some instruction within that building.
I'm not sure if that would get tricky as well, where we're looking to have it be a multi-use facility, not one specific lane as well. I'm not sure if there's grants, you know.
Like a joint use grant kind of thing. I don't know. I know who to ask.
I mean, most grants I've seen are pretty, this is the reason they're created for exactly this purpose. And they're just pretty general.
all right. So I think the conversation really is, where do you want us to go from here, and what is the direction for our team?
Well, like I said, I think we got to find out a little better detail rather than just guessing what it's going to cost, because, you know, those numbers we saw, I mean, it doesn't really tell you anything. I didn't think, but other than price. What are we getting for the 4 million? What are we getting? Do we get into that? I don't remember getting into
Yeah, it
that.
was on the slide.
That's how you got the visuals.
So we have,
Space
I know,
square
but I mean,
footage.
I thought we were going to, at one time, try to make it where we can free up space from the ROTC. And what I heard the first artisan, they want to keep their old stuff. But I thought we were going to look at something for the DECA program.
Yeah,
base.
and to be clear, we have not gotten into the programming conversations
Okay,
yet, so
okay.
I do want to make that clear. But to your point, Mr. Carney, we have kept our architects at the schematic design level, just because it was my understanding you did not want to invest any more into this until we understood if we were ready. So we have not put it out to the bid market. So those are very much budgetary numbers that were presented based upon a, per square foot kind of analysis. I'm happy to go that next level. Just want to be clear where it's at today.
Thank you.
So are
You're
you just
welcome.
looking for like a general consensus that we want to
Yep.
move forward?
The last thing I want to do is authorize an architect for $30,000 of billables, and then you're looking at me going, "Hey, why'd you do that?" Does that make sense?
I would love to move forward. I don't know what everybody else is thinking, so.
I think we need to do some exploration on how we would do the funding, just a little more detail on
I
that.
was going to suggest a study session.
Yeah.
That way we could discuss the DECA, we could discuss whatever things the JROTC program needed, having that discussion, maybe some of the grants that could possibly be found and used for this, to use some of that creativity that I know we have within the district.
I may be mistaken, but I thought at the last board meeting, we had asked for or suggested or something like the ROTC presentation.
That is accurate. Yep. So to be
Ish.
clear, we started with this piece first.
Okay.
My concern was if there was sticker shock and you were
Sure,
like,
sure.
"Sorry, we're not interested in spending that
There's
coin."
Sticker shock.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I'm-
to that point, right?
And I'll be Debbie Downer, something that, because I've been thinking about this like we all have for months and months. And of course, it's a worthy project, and no one would say that it isn't a worthy project. But the sticker shock gives me pause for sure, because I don't know that there's an appetite for a bond in this community at this time. And I keep going back to, the mission of the district and what our core mission is. We have a lot of needs, and we're struggling on the academic side, and we're, for a variety of complicated reasons. But yeah, it gives me some serious pause, like maybe we can't afford to do this right now.
Study session.
Okay. So I'm hearing study session. Do we want to try to set that tonight or?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
The reason I
So
brought that up is because I just felt like if we could hear from the ones wanting the extra space, the details of how they would use the extra space, how it would align with their mission statement, and how we support our students
Right.
from the different groups that we're looking at using the space.
Right.
Absolutely.
The
It would
CTE
help us
alignment.
make a better informed decision maybe in our study session if we go into it with that insight, instead of not having heard from them as a board and just kind of looking at each other like, well, do we need this or not? I would just like to go into the study session after having presentation from anybody that we're looking at using that building.
okay.
And I would say, seeing since we are in summer session, and a lot of those people may be getting to have the chance to enjoy that where others may work the full time, I would suggest a study session happens after they've at least gotten their feet wet the first week of school, so they can at least get their classrooms all started, know their students, and then come in and have them present. That way we're not throwing extra things on the platter.
Liz and
All our
Right, 'cause
CTE
we're looking at
With the new
Liz for
CTE
sergeant.
coordinator as well.
And I'm looking at Mr. Potter. I believe he relayed that they were expected to have something. So I think they've at least been made aware of that. So this gives them now official notice and allows us to work from a timeline. So are we thinking late August, early September?
For a work session?
Okay.
Yes.
So do we want to pull out the calendars to try to come to a date?
Early September, you said?
End of August, 1st of September. Our next board meeting's the 9th.
Yeah.
So you should have a regular on,
And we don't want to do it on Labor Day.
No.
oh, we got to.
how about September 9? Does that sound
Well,
right?
September 9th is the next board meeting.
That is our.
Yep.
board
So that's
meeting.
your regular. Yep. So then obviously the Monday before is out.
So probably that Monday in August, that's
The 26th?
So you have 6/19 or 6/26. Sorry, 8/19.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like,
My
what?
apologies. 8/19 or
I'm
8/26.
here.
8/26 works with me. I have a conflict on my schedule on the 19th.
Yeah, I'm just the opposite.
Well, What do you say?
I can make
Well-
this 26 work though.
Does it have to be on a Monday?
No, does not have
Not
to be
from
a
my
Monday.
end.
No, it's just.
I would like
sometimes
to
we
give
have-
additional time and
I think
have it on September 16th, if at all possible.
I think that might be a good idea, like you said, to
Give them time.
give them a little time.
Okay.
Okay, the only thing I'm seeing is District Site Council, Mrs. Batson, just looking for confirmation. Yep. So we're gonna look at
September 6th.
Monday, 16 September, 6:00 PM.
And that is an open session for the public to come and listen as well. And we'll receive information from the programs that will utilize the proposed building.
Yep, we're gonna consider it a work session, right? So likely not any of the regular perfunctory action that we take, right?
Perfect.
So. All right, so you requested interest rates, Mr. Sifford, if you would zoom in for my old eyes, please. Thank you. Column 4 should show you your current interest rates of all outstanding debt in the district, as well as the principal balance. I'm sorry?
Item 12 or for.
No, I know that
Oh.
a couple of you were asking about interest rates.
Could we
So-
get that printed out, please?
Can you scroll down, Ryan?
So anywhere from 2s to some 3.5s.
Keep
So I don't
scrolling.
think we're likely to see those. for-
Yep. So
There's a
I don't think you were on the
3.6.
board yet, but I believe most of our outstanding debt had been refinanced when those rates dropped. So kudos to Mrs. Maddox. That cut years off of that debt service. So
Her and Kevin both worked very hard.
And is that a 6:00 start time again for the work session?
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that or not?
No,
no, we'll issue the notice and all that good
Okay,
stuff. Yep.
okay.
we have time because that's the September.
Alrighty.
We likely won't even be publishing the agenda till.
So we're moving along now?
Yes.
All right, Beth, don't go anywhere.
We're at 12, right?
Yes.
Review of the revenue neutral tax rate.
So I've working on this all day, so I apologize. This is for the first chance you've had to see this, but it's been something I've been working on all day. So every year we are required to provide notice to Leavenworth County Clerk before July 20th of the school district's intent to exceed the revenue neutral tax rate and set the mill rate ceiling for the budget. So we have two options, the mill rate neutral option, and this is compared to our revenue neutral tax rates of 54.391 mils. So to remain mill rate neutral, the general fund mill rate would be 20 mils. Capital outlay would be 7.56 mils. Supplemental general would be 14.674 mils. Bond and interest would be 14.003 mils for a total mill rate of 56.237, and that would be mill rate neutral. We also could do a mill rate increase. An increase of 0.439 mils is the same as a mill rate neutral except for the capital outlay, which would be set at 8 mils, which is the most capital outlay can be. So that mill rate is 56.677 mils.
And that's the season.
Okay. So again, we have to notify the county clerk of our intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. The ceiling would be set at 56.677 mils. And the board would still have the option to lower the mill rate when adopting the budget in September, if necessary.
And just to be
Has that been
clear-
sent to email?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Has that been sent to email yet? I mean, or will you send it to our email? please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And to be clear, this is not a vote on the tax rate. It's just notifying them this is our max ceiling.
Correct.
Yeah, the key
And that
takeaway
was
tonight
published.
is whatever is
Correct.
published sets your ceiling. You cannot go any higher than this.
This seems less than it was last year for the ceiling. Is that correct?
It's more because last year's tax rate is 56.238.
Okay.
So it's a 0.439, mil rate increase.
I think, were you saying the drop last year? Was that what you were referencing?
it feels like the percentage itself is less.
The-
It feels like it was bigger last year. not
It
the-
was,
Yep.
it was,
Okay.
that is correct.
I think last year we were pushing almost 10% on
Right.
increased valuation.
Right,
This year we're closer to 3 and 4 is what I've been told.
correct.
So need a motion?
You do not need a motion tonight.
Oh, okay.
This comes back. Are you thinking September regular
Yes,
for the hearings?
yes.
Okay.
The August
So-
regular would be a budget review,
Kind of a quick synopsis of what happens next. Beth notifies county clerk.
correct.
They put into motion all the things that they do. And then those notices should start arriving in mailboxes, probably what, in the next 30 days ish? Okay.
After July 20th.
And so patrons get their notices. Then at the September 9 regular meeting, you would have the 2 hearings. If you recall, these hearings were like 5 minutes apart last year. You have the revenue neutral hearing, and then you have the regular budget hearing.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Do you have anything planned for the August meeting?
Budget review.
Budget review. Okay, very good. So a chance to review it after you've had the chance to get everything ready on your end.
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along then. Item 13,
Okay.
Kansas Association.
Thank you, Beth.
Kansas Association of School Board Policy Update.
All right, so just to emphasize, tonight is a first read. The other thing I want to emphasize is as of Thursday, July 3rd, Wednesday, July 3rd, several policies were removed that were related to Title IX. That was at the direction of KASB. Those are all now considered to be on hold. So if you looked at this prior to whenever Emily took them off, just know that they are now temporarily on hold and you should not see them proposed for your approval at the next month. Happy to take any questions, but with our regular cadence, first read this month and a potential approval in August.
So Robert, can I go ahead and send you my question then? It's in regards to them removing the word harassment and replacing it with discrimination, which makes me sad because to me, harassment can sound like.
No, it's a
Okay.
different one.
I had the same, that was one of mine.
Right, when you
So-
get harassment and you get assault, but then you have discrimination. Discrimination, though, is a very serious allegation, does not sound the same as sexual harassment. Especially in the connotations, if it's a slap on the rear or something like that, because then you're looking at both harassment and assault. And I don't necessarily like the softer tone.
I'm hesitant to talk about that out because it's a legal analysis, but if you have
Right, but what
questions, I'm
saying
happy to
is,
respond.
I want to shoot that to you because it
absolutely.
just seems, I know legal jargon changes all the time, but not always for the better. And I just want to make sure, should there ever be a victim, that victim is protected. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, send it my way. Happy to.
I just wanted
That's your
to thank Karen for going ahead and issuing her questions on some of those policies already. I appreciate that.
I would just add to that, and I know I had emailed you earlier today. I know that some of the details of our emergency or EOP, emergency, that we will be getting briefed on that. But reading through this, and I was able to find them in our policy. We already had those, and then we were going to have the updates from KASB. So I was able to put all that together. But I would like to know, just as a board member who is reviewing that, more detail, not necessarily that's going to get written in the policy, but for my own knowledge, how are we securing training? Who's getting trained? How often are we training? With the defibrillators, with our response plan. Only because these are life and death type of policies. Other things we can, as situations come up, we can go look up the policy. How do we handle this? But this is something that's got to be like, everybody's got to know exactly what to do. And so as we are supposed to review that, I would be more comfortable if I saw more detail on that.
Yep. So in
flow
August,
chart.
we go in executive session and go over our plan. That is our cadence. And Dr. Adams made the suggestion.
in August, we can go in executive session and do that first with regards to before you would take action on any board policy, which I thought was a great suggestion. With regards to training, we're ahead of the game. We were ahead with the Narcan. We're ahead with the AEDs. We provide those and have had them in our district for some time, and training has been ongoing. Happy to provide all that information. Our nurses are phenomenal. We have registered nurses and licensed LPNs. And so they are trainers for the American Red Cross. And so we already do CPR and several other trainings annually, but happy to share all that and give you, if you want to know who and all that, happy to do that. But that's a part of your district team. I oversee the district emergency management team, and then each building has a building emergency management team led by the principal. And so there are members on those teams ranging from the school nurse, which is on every team, as well as your custodian. They're the ones who can turn off the gas, turn off the power in the event of an emergency or things like that. So happy to share all that with you. And by all means, if you'd like to come and see them, you can come and see those anytime. They get updated on a regular basis. For example, Dr. Rettelberger and her team helped and revised some of our suicide response and actions and preventions. And so that has been updated for the upcoming school year.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, so I showed the August regular is Monday, 12 August, which means board leadership would set the agenda on Wednesday, 7 August. So would it be plausible and possible to have those questions to us by August 2nd? Does that give everybody enough time?
On the policies.
On the regarding the policies, correct, yep. That workable?
I
About a month, isn't it?
dated before, but I think that even if we have discussions beforehand, a large important factor of having public meetings is so that the public or the staff or whoever involved can hear
Sure.
individual board members, the part that they bring to the table and all that. So
Yep, I don't disagree there. I'm more thinking about the questions that I can't answer
perfect.
that I want to get into
Time
the,
to research.
you got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. We have 14.
All right, number 14, Mr. Sifford, if you could maybe zoom in on that, is that possible? It's the brief timeline, so to speak. So I'm in year 2, just started on, I guess, what would that be, last week now? So how the time flies. Just a reminder, in years 1 and 2, you will evaluate me twice, once in the fall, once in the spring. And so last year, if you recall, we had gone through 2 different instruments. We kind of landed on that one that requires the district's board to set the goals. And that annual goal setting is to take place here by the end of August. So after some feedback from, I would say, several of you, you wanted to see this occur earlier. And so that is why it was added to tonight's agenda. Does that make sense? So again, August is your deadline for the annual goals, after which then you can see what takes place next.
And how do we set the annual goals? Is that done with board leadership or in a study session, or do we have input on that, or how?
That is for you to decide, Mrs. Overby. Yep.
Okay, then
I've seen it.
I'm asking board leadership.
I've seen it done a number of ways. So
I would say that my gut reaction is a work session, that we just basically hash it out, top 3,
Mhm.
whatever.
Will we set that tonight then, or
I'm just
think we
offering, I'm
should.
not saying we have to. That's just my gut.
I think that would be best if we did a work session for that too.
Okay.
So we look at
Look at your calendars
mid-August
again.
or early August then for goal setting session, a special session, or work session, I mean.
Be a work session.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's a goal session, so I assume we'll take the goals that we had previously and reevaluate those goals together. Mondays in August are kind of crazy, especially with back to school. Wednesday, the 28th, does anybody have anything going on that day right now to do?
Yes. but
Yeah.
I can work
Is
around
there
it.
another day of the week that works best for everybody other than Mondays?
I think this point when we're doing dates like this and we didn't bring our personal calendars with us, it might be something we want to sit down and go ahead and have a moment to check everything.
So maybe by the August board meeting, have some dates available that you're willing to meet with later on in August for that goal setting?
Yes.
Does that work?
Okay, so I think tonight we decided you're going to do it as a whole board.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it at a work session.
Yep.
So Karen, did that answer your initial questions?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that I can do to prepare for that so that you can be successful that night?
Have what our previous goals were,
Have what the previous goals were. Okay.
and also a copy of the strategic plan to make sure that those goals are still aligned with the plan.
Got it.
Anything else, anybody?
Got it?
I'm
Can
happy
we-
if you all are happy.
Are
We
we
just
able
gotta
to
come up
have a
with a date.
copy
That
of
way we're
your
about a date.
self-evaluation at that as well?
So the self-evaluation is due in February. Or are you talking last year's?
Last year.
Last year's, yep. Okay. Thank you.
So we're gonna put out some dates and then try to get people on the same dates. Is that what
So if I
heard?
can suggest, I would have Mr. Potter include potential dates in the Friday review. And then you from there would select which ones work for you.
Okay.
Does that sound appropriate? That gives you then the chance to evaluate your calendar. And then Jake can find the date or dates of commonality from there. Mr. Potter, if you'd be so kind to do that for us. Thank you.
When do you need those?
He'll do Friday review.
Okay.
Huh?
He'll provide it Friday.
Yeah, we'll probably try to identify like
Oh, I
maybe
thought you had them right off the top of your head right now.
probably 4 or 5 options. So
Okay, let's move on then. We got that under control. 15, 2024, 25 annual conferences.
yep. So we have now dates and locations for all 3 of these annual conferences. So the first is the Kansas School Board Resource Center in, I guess that'd be Wichita. Yep, sorry. On 11 September. The second is the Kansas Association of School Boards on 15 through 17 of November, also in Wichita. I believe they're at the same location. And then the NSBA conference is now, and I think you saw this notice, they're going to shift that a day earlier, right? And so you'll now have it a Friday through Sunday. So 4 April through 6 April in Atlanta. You don't need to take necessarily any action tonight. My request for you is to identify which ones you want to go to and then notify Emily of your intent. That way we can start getting hotels and or airfare secured. The earlier, the better.
We have access to all 3 of them though.
You have access to all 3. That is accurate. Yep. Is there any questions I can answer for you right now? And those are the only 3 that have come to my inbox. So if there's others, by all means.
The only thing I would like to suggest is if we board members, which I personally have gone to many of these conferences at the end, we've never had like a session at the end of these conferences to come together and reveal the information that we've taken in at the school district's expense. I would really like to have a session that we're not necessarily required to attend if you don't want to attend, but that we can all sit down and just discuss what we've learned. Because we all typically try to take different classes. And I don't know that we sit down and discuss what experiences we learned in those classes and the materials that were given and the resources that we do. I mean, I think they've helped make me a better board member, but we don't have those discussions together. And I would really like to see us start implementing something like that in the future.
Yeah, it'd be great to
Good
be able to
idea.
pull maybe stuff forward, even if we had a consensus on something. Because I know
Right.
there's been like a topic, like 1 or 2 of us are like, this would be awesome.
Right.
And then we like talk to HR or something, but it's like trying to get the ball, going.
Absolutely.
So,
Because I'm reminded, your agenda is open here with one of our keynote speakers with this dignity index. That's something that I would love to see us use, but not all of us know that language. And so that's just a small breakout of something that I would like to be able to discuss with everybody.
I would very much appreciate that. Also, as somebody who has a very difficult time leaving overnight, being a caregiver.
Absolutely.
So these are very difficult for me to attend. So
And we're getting these resources. I mean, not all of us need to attend, but I think especially like during the superintendent search for you, like Vanessa and I were hearing the exact same conversations and coming away with completely different things. And it's helpful to hear how we both think and what information we took away, even though we're in the same session. To not be able to discuss that I think it's detrimental to how we function as a board to not have those conversations.
And I think it will help us potentially cover more ground well as board too, because if we are going to different trainings,
Absolutely.
So this is just Kellen's idea, but you could, let's use there's one in September, okay? You could use then the October regular, and at the front end of that meeting is a placeholder for a reflection and or a report out from the people that attended that. Does that make sense? The same thing then could happen at the December meeting and the May meeting.
and if we wanted more discussion, we could plan a work session after that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I'm hearing that as a consensus. Okay.
Mhm.
So we will make sure that happens on those agendas.
Well, I'll be honest too, one of the first things I did as a board member and setting through some of my classes, I utilized my community page for my name under the school district, and I published that on there along with Mr. Shriver's information for his website, so that not only any of the other board members could have looked at it, but the community could also see what we have been discussing.
Next item.
I don't need anything else. Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Okay.
How long do we need? For next?
Mrs.
How much time?
Are you going to give a break?
Do you need a break?
no, it's
10?
10.
Do you need a break? Do you need a
I
break?
agree with Karen.
Bio break?
Power through?
We need
So
some breaks, do we?
No.
No breaks.
Oh, no break. I'm fine. I'm
7:20,
good.
7:27.
No break. Okay.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return into open session in this room at 7:27. The board will invite Dr. Adams, Ms. Sloan, and Mr. Hingula into the meeting.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Me.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Price, seconded by Mrs. Wells.
No,
Doing
Merce Murphy.
it- Murphy. I just saw your hand up.
Yeah.
She's trying to
I'm
vote
trying
to
to
get
vote.
into the meeting.
Oh, you wanted to break. Okay. All in favor? Looks like 7-0. Yeah. You kidding?
Run quick. I move that we adopt the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Ms. Wells.
Say again?
Motion by Mrs. Price, seconded by Mrs. Wells to approve the staffing report. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Okay. Let me get my glasses. Bigger font next time, Emily. Okay.
So, President.
Meeting dates? We discussed that already. didn't we?
Yeah, I'm happy to read them if you want.
Well, I think with all the ones we added, you might want to. Can we add a few?
We just added the September the 16th to this.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know the dates?
Yeah.
You already-
I can if you want, or I can stay silent.
Works.
I'm good either way.
All right. So we're going to add September 16th, 6:00 p.m. Would you like to do that meeting here? I know I got some time to make plans. Or would you like to do it at the high school if you want to see some of the space?
The high school might be helpful.
Yeah, probably at the high school.
That way, if you want to do a quick tour before or after, right? Okay, so we'll plan it at the high school, okay?
This is just my 2 cents. I would recommend that you go during school time, maybe set up a tour with Dr. Adams, which is what I went during school time. It's a lot easier to understand why they need to not be competing with gym and everything if you see all the things going on instead of just looking at an open room and going, that looks big enough to me. So I would just suggest you go when the kids are there and actively using the space.
I fully agree with you. A space inhabited takes on a whole different life than a space uninhabited at 6 o'clock.
It's
So
like looking at a new house and then you go to move in and you're
Mhm.
like, wait a second.
Yep.
I actually need a
Don't
bigger
fit.
Yep. So one thing we could do, I've done this in the past, is you set up basically 2 different times during the day that we can be available. If you're available for either one of those, come on by. But that gives you a chance to tour the space, say in a morning session and an afternoon session. Does that make
On
sense?
that same day.
On that same day. Yep. That way, if you can't make one, but you can make the other. So that work for you?
Works for me.
Okay.
That's it for the dates. Guess we'll go to board member comments and Mrs. Reed.
Well, I saw a group of staff out at lunchtime and it was just fun to see them engaging each other over the summer, and everybody actually, it was probably Harbor Lights cheesecake. I don't know what to
And the new
compare it to,
carpet.
but everybody seemed happy and it was just great to see them and wish them a good summer. So I just do that to all our staff and students. I hope you're having a great summer and getting some refresh and yeah.
Oh, that's it?
Short and sweet.
Ms. Wilson?
I'd say the same thing. Summer has started off fun. It'll be ending before we know it, so enjoy it while you got it. Have a good night.
Ms. Overby?
Well, I'd like to thank Dr. Adams and Laura Batson and the HR team for including the flyer on the Association of American Educators in the new teachers packets this year. I think it's important that teachers are aware that there are options for affordable professional liability insurance and legal representation, as well as educational resources. And while the AAE does not do collective bargaining, they also do not spend their members' dues on politicking or take positions on issues that are not germane to education, or tell their members who to vote for. So I'd also like to encourage all our educators to take a look at the Association of American Educators to see if it may serve your needs. And I think more options is a net positive, so I appreciate your willingness to get that, that word out. It's hard to believe how quickly summer is flying by, and soon we'll be ramping up again to hopefully have another amazing year. And I'm looking forward to the new teacher academy and meeting all the new people on our team. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to Christian from LVTV for doing a fantastic job getting information out on your weekly broadcast. I enjoy the personal touch, and I had no idea that humpback whales are now migrating through the Lake of the Ozarks. So nature is truly amazing. So until next time.
Ms. Murphy?
High five to the additional resources added to the teacher packets. Every information so somebody can make an educated choice is always positive. No one has to agree on the choices, but at least they get to do what they feel best for their needs. I'm excited to hear, and I'm hoping it will be at our next meeting, some of the processes and the outcomes of our summer school session and how that helped the students and what improvements they may have seen with their academics or any other issues they could have seen that have risen. Then there was, Nebraska Furniture Mart. I know the district is picky about carpets in the teachers' rooms or wherever, but Nebraska Furniture Mart is giving away rugs to teachers again this year. It is July 15th. Please take your ID. And if I don't have the date right, you can look at the my page, it's there. Because, you know, a free rug for a teacher's a happy moment, I guess.
Mrs. Wells?
I want to recognize that learning is still happening all across the district. Our pioneers are shining everywhere. I love the series that is on Facebook where we show our teachers abroad enjoying themselves and what they're doing, as well as our students accomplishing things. Our TSA students just competed at nationals. They had an exceptional time and learned lots. And the new TSA president is from Kansas, a Baser student. So congratulations to them. I just want to say thank you to the board for this last year of being able to be the vice president. I was able to learn and grow a lot. I encourage all of my fellow board members to not just attend the national and the state conferences, but to attend any trainings that you might be able to. Make yourselves better humans so that we can be better for our teachers and our staff and the policies that we try to create and do better for. That is it. Have a great rest of your week and see you next month.
Mr. Price?
Alrighty. So summer programs went through the month of June. And I want to say thank you to all the students who went and did all the good things and were learning, and to all the staff that made that possible. I know that summer school is not always the best, but I've heard a lot of really good things about our summer programs. So I want to say thank you. And Ms. Batson, thank you for making sure all of that happened. That's a great, great thing. It is halfway through the summer, so please be safe. Coming back to school, I know that the site is up to re-register for the new year. I can't believe it's already that time. I'm really excited about onboarding our new pioneers for the new teacher academy and also our new certified and classified folks, but just lots of things to remember. My fellow board members, thank you for your trust in us to take us to the next year. Please sign the resolutions before you leave. I don't want to chase you down, so please sign them. They're all over on the back wall. And then I have some personal news that is related to being on the board. So I am honored to announce that I have been appointed by the Board of Regents to the Blueprint for Literacy Advisory Committee. I am the sole school board member from the state to represent all school boards on this literacy committee, and it wouldn't be possible without being on this school board. So thank you, Leavenworth, for letting that happen. So all the fun to follow. And as always, it's good to be a pioneer.
I got a couple things. You don't have too much to say, but I think one of the things I'd like to maybe see happen with the crisis we have about getting teachers is maybe invite our local legislators to come down to the meetings, maybe a special meeting or whatever, and see what kind of ideas they might have to come up with some funding, extra funding maybe, to funding the Chiefs, stadiums and stuff like that. Take care of our state first, but I think it was a good thing. We did that a few years, and then I think I don't even remember last time we had a legislator come to a meeting. Not in the last 10 years, anyway.
Yeah, we did. Pittman was here last year.
Who?
Pittman came in last year.
No, I'm talking about a group of legislators. Wednesday, Tuesday is fine, but get a consensus of some people and maybe get something done to help with funding. Secondly, I don't know if you all care about how your kids and grandkids handle their phones in schools. I think we got a major problem nationwide. I think it's pretty obvious. It's become an epidemic, and I don't know how much you read in the paper, if you believe it or not, but I believe what I read, and the TikTok thing really got to go. I don't know if you read about the thing with Indiana or Michigan about TikTok just abusing and harassing teachers and making fun of them, lewd comments and threats and things like that. But it's an addiction as far as I'm concerned, what I've been reading. And I hate to use people I know as an example, but when kids are on a phone 11 hours a day, I think that's a problem. You may not think so. And it's just sad. You go in a restaurant, you see a family sitting around, everybody looking at their phone. There's no interpersonal skills. We're losing that. And the biggest thing, the biggest problem is the pulling part that I don't like. I think there's a way we could manage keeping the phones so they didn't, have to use them in the school. There's no need for them to be in the school as far as I'm concerned. I remember we paid a lot of money for one of the greatest phone systems in the state. So I don't think of the getting the hold of mom and dad issue. I think it's just ridiculous personally. Anyway, that's about it. We're adjourned.
Don't forget